do you believe that Brown versus Board of Education was correctly decided?
I think I get into a difficult area when I start commenting on Supreme Court decisions, which are correctly decided and which I may disagree with.
On Thursday, one day before the 65th anniversary of the historic Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court ruling, the Senate confirmed Wendy Bitter, the woman you just saw in that video, as a lifetime appointed judge in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana. According to the Washington Post, more than 24 Trump judicial nominees have declined to answer whether Brown versus the Board of Education, the case that ended legal segregation in public schools, was properly decided. And joining me now is Sherilyn Ifill, President and Co-Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So, Sherilyn, wonderful to see you this morning, but that's shocking. I mean, we're now accustomed to Republican-appointed judges demurring on Roe v. Wade, but Brown v. Board?
Yeah, and this is new. I think that's what people have to understand. The question that Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut asked is one he regarded as a softball, a kind of no-brainer, an opportunity to hear a nominee talk about issues of race and racial justice. And he told me that he was shocked by the answer that Wendy Bitter gave, and he continues asking nominees that question. And since she answered it that way, we have heard the answer, some of which you played, of successive nominees refusing to talk about Brown versus Board of Education. It's worth remembering that Chief Justice Roberts had no problem talking about Brown versus Board of Education. At his confirmation hearing, Justice Alito called it a decision that vindicated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. This was never an issue that was in controversy. And yet, over the last year, we have seen this wave of successive nominees, most of them judicial nominees, but also recently the newly confirmed Deputy Attorney General of the Department of Justice, the person who's replacing Rod Rosenstein and who will oversee the individuals who oversee the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, refuse to talk about Brown as well. In my view, this is clearly planned, it's orchestrated, it's a signal, it's a shot across the bow, and we better wake up and take notice.
And a shot across the bow about what? Because Donald Trump has put over 100 judges now on the federal courts. What do you think they're setting up to do or overturn?
Well, I think that, you described Brown as ending segregation in schools, or at least state-sanctioned segregation in public schools, but actually Brown is so much more. It really kind of hit the reset button on American democracy. The promise of the 14th Amendment had essentially been smothered, after Reconstruction, and it was Brown in 1954 that revived what was supposed to be this idea of equality and advancement for African Americans. But in so doing, Brown then opened the door for a reimagining and understanding of what equality means for women, for the poor, for the mentally ill, for Latinos, for Asian Americans, for members of the LGBTQ community. The whole process of reimagining American democracy in the middle of the 20th century happened first, at least in the courts, as a result of Brown. It transformed the entire legal system, even the way we think about the law as a tool for transformation and for giving voice to the marginalized. That all emanates from Brown. That's not how the law worked before the Brown case. And I think it's that project that is encompassed in Brown, and that's kind of what they're speaking to in that moment. It's a signal about the fact that everything's kind of on the table.
Yeah, apparently all of our rights are on the table and not in a good way. Sherilyn Ifill, thank you so much. We'll have you come back and talk about this more. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Joy.
And more AM Show after the break.